Hello, guys. Welcome to Single and Whole, episode 1. We're here. We made it. Please don't be alarmed if the lights go out. It is storming now at my house, but I still just have to get on here and make this podcast episode. Here we are, episode 1. This is Single and Whole, a place where we're going to talk all things singleness, dating, and what it looks like to walk out your singleness in a God-honoring way. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about a topic that I was not planning to discuss today, and that topic is, are you keeping yourself single? I know, kind of a hot topic. I think a lot of people, especially in the Christian community, have a lot of opinions about this. There's a lot of people who are more in the realm of the Lord hides you until you meet the right person. And then there's other people who are like, you can actively wait, you can download a dating app or still seek out or scout out your options, like while you wait. You have an active role in your love story. So we're going to be talking about that today. So first of all, I want to say, anyone who knows me and knows me well knows I have been single my whole life, forever, pretty much. That's just something that like my family and like my close friends know about me ultimately. And I don't think anyone sees it as a weird thing. I don't see it as a weird thing. I think maybe some years back, maybe society would think it would be kind of weird for someone to be in their late 20s and still have like never been in a serious relationship. And maybe some people, they still feel that way. However, I know plenty of other people who also like are kind of in my same sphere too. So ultimately for me, it's not that weird, but for some people it might be weird, and I understand that. So I say all that to just basically say, for a while, in some ways, I kind of always identified with just being single because I was single for so long, and like also didn't date for so long ultimately. And so I think a part of me truly did feel that, okay, like the Lord's just like hiding me for the right person, and then like when I meet the right person, he'll reveal me to the right person, and he'll reveal that person to me. That was my mindset. And for some people, maybe that's their story ultimately. But in some ways, I see kind of some flaws with this in some ways, and we're gonna hop into that now. So basically, yeah, I always had that mindset. And of course, like when you're 16 and you have that mindset, it's not that big of a deal. You're young, you have all the time in the world. But then like you graduate high school and you go to college and you graduate college, then you get in your 20s, then you get in your mid 20s, then like years and years and years go by, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, like Lord, like what's going on? What's happening? I thought ultimately like if I seek you and I pursue you ultimately, that by X age you'll provide me the right person. And like when that didn't happen for me, I just was like, okay, Lord, like what's going on ultimately? And so I say all that to say, sometimes we can be ultimately we can be the cause of standing in the way of some of the things we want sometimes. And sometimes the Lord is like, actually, that's not what I was telling you to do ultimately. Sometimes we put God in a box and we see him as only being one way. But a lot of times the Lord uses things that you think that he never would use ultimately. So that was my mindset for so long ultimately. And then basically, like fast forward some years in my life, I get to that point. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm pretty much in my mid 20s now, and like haven't been on a date, haven't been in a relationship. I download a dating app, and then I downloaded a few dating apps, and that's kind of where my journey with dating began ultimately. And obviously I'm still here, and like there's no ring on my finger ultimately. But I think that those experiences taught me a lot. And I think like what it showed me, and I kind of lean more in this camp now, is I think it's okay to play an active role in your dating life and play an active role in ultimately an active role in not helping God, because ultimately, of course, like God is God, he doesn't need help, but like an active role in pursuing what it is you want. So if you want a relationship, I think it's okay to play an active role in that, because when you think about it, with all other things, we don't have this mindset of like, okay, like when the Lord is ready to make it happen, he's gonna make it happen and I don't have to do anything at all. Like we don't think that way when it comes to jobs. Like ultimately, can you imagine like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna just sit here, the Lord's got it, he's gonna like send someone to call me with the right job at the right time. We don't have that mindset about that. I would say we don't even really have that mindset about friendships ultimately. A lot of times, like we tell people, okay, like if you want friends, you move to a new place, you've gone to college, you have to go out there and show yourself friendly ultimately. So there's also the verse, and my mom used to always tell this to me, if a man desires friends, he must first show himself friendly. And I believe the verse says, if a man hath friends, he himself must be friendly. So that just, it goes to show you, like, people are drawn to people who are warm and inviting, and ultimately, to be friends, you do have to show yourself friendly to other people who are around you ultimately. So when we talk about friendships, we don't talk about it in a way of you do nothing at all. It seems like the one way that we talk about, especially in the Christian community, that you just kind of, you don't do anything and you wait and you let the Lord just bring you the person when he's ready to do that. The only time we talk about not having an active role in pursuing something that we want typically is when it comes to dating. And also specifically, I would say, when it comes to women. I feel like we kind of talk to both. I feel like we're getting out of that, but like I feel like in the past we've definitely talked to both men and women in that way, in some way, of just like, okay, run your race, focus on God. And then again, at the right time, as you're running the race, someone will run alongside you, and then the Lord will join you too. And I believe ultimately, like, yes, the Lord is always behind the scenes, but I think we all can be doing things now, playing an active part now, ultimately, to get our desired outcome of having a spouse. That is just what I believe right now. And why I said specifically women, because ultimately, obviously, like men since forever pretty much have always been kind of known as the pursuers. So of course, even if like a man's like running his race, focusing on the Lord, it's typically going to be him who's the one to like ask a woman out on a date ultimately. So he's always had more like an active role in that way. So when it comes to being like a woman, it's just like, I think a lot of people felt like, wow, I really can't do anything at all, because it's like, oh, can't ask a guy out, or that's because that's like masculine, that's not my place, that's not my role. And then it's like, you know, it's, I think a lot of women feel like, okay, like if I don't play an active role in that, what is it that it is that I'm supposed to do ultimately? So yeah, we're going to talk about that, because I think there are things you can do ultimately to get the desired outcome of having a spouse, if that is what you want ultimately. And I know that is what a lot of us want who are here either listening to this podcast or watching this video. Okay, so for one, what is your mindset regarding dating? Like I said, I used to always have the mindset of the Lord is the one who's hiding me, and he's hiding me for the right person. And although that can be true, I'm just gonna say it, like ultimately it could be the enemy, it could be the evil one who's like blocking you from meeting the right person. I feel like we don't always want to talk about that, but it's true. Like Satan hates godly marriages, so of course he's gonna ultimately fight to against bringing two godly people together to form a godly union, and then have a godly marriage, and then have godly children, and then pursue ultimately whatever it is, the calling that is on their life together. He doesn't want any type of glorification of the kingdom. So of course Satan hates godly marriages. And I never thought about that until like later on in my 20s, because I always thought it's just, oh, it's the Lord, why it's just not happening. But then I was like, actually, one day I was like, maybe it's not. Like, maybe it's the enemy. Like, maybe ultimately he doesn't want to see me with have a godly marriage, and he's blocking things and working hard to block things from me meeting the right person ultimately. So I would say, what is your mindset? And if you have the same mindset I have, I would say be open to the fact that ultimately too, it could be the enemy preventing you from meeting the right person. And if that is the case, ultimately you have to pray against that. Like, we have to pray against the enemy and his schemes, because sometimes when we just don't, because I don't think I ever prayed like, Lord, if the enemy is blocking me from getting married, like, stop his plans. I don't think I ever prayed that prayer. And when you don't take the time to pray the prayer, sometimes the situation just continues. And so yeah, ultimately now that is something I try to do more, not just in this area of my life, but in other areas of my life. I'm like, Lord, like, or like, just also just saying like, enemy's followers, like, I rebuke you in this area, I rebuke you in that area. I don't align with that. If there's some type of curse that is being placed in this area, I break that curse in Jesus Christ's name and by the blood of Jesus ultimately. So first you just have to do that, I feel like. Okay. And then secondly, something I don't think we always talk about or have talked about is, yes, the enemy could keep you single, but also it could be yourself that is keeping you single. Let's talk about that. Okay. So if you're my age or around my age, you probably grew up or have heard of something called purity culture. It was really big, I would say, back in like the early 2000s and maybe like the beginning of the 2010s and probably the 90s too. It was probably pretty popular as well. If you know, you know. I know a lot of people are familiar with it, but I think basically, just to discuss it a little bit more, it just was the idea of basically not talking about like intimacy, it seems like, at all, like remaining pure, which is good, but like remaining pure so much to a point that like there's no discussion of like intimacy, there's no discussion of what intimacy in a healthy way looks like, and there's just a lot of shame ultimately. Hopefully there are some people out there who they weren't intending to do that, but I think because of some of the ways the purity movement went about things, it brought about like a lot of shame ultimately. So there's that. So yeah, I grew up kind of, I would say, in that time, and then also too, grew up with pretty strict parents, which is fine. Love my mom and dad. But like when you get to a certain age, like when you're always taught, oh, like boys want one thing, boys are bad, don't talk to them, don't engage with them. And not that they were just saying that specifically, but like when you kind of feel like you aren't supposed to interact like with people of the opposite gender, there we go, gender as you, and you do that. Maybe you're a good girl, you only have girlfriends, you don't talk to guys, you don't go out on dates, you're trying to do the right thing, but then you get to a point where you are older and you are old enough to date and you are old enough to think about marriage, you are old enough to get married, that now you don't know how to act ultimately around men. And that was my issue ultimately, because I always, even in college, I'd say I always just mainly had girlfriends ultimately, which was fine ultimately, because I feel like I just didn't know how to like act ultimately. Or how many times do I say ultimately? A lot. I didn't know how to act around like guys and men and things. And so because of that, and also I was kind of pretty shy too in general. Even in general, I was a pretty shy person. So I'd say definitely in college, I did not interact with men a lot. I kind of just stayed with the girlies and did my thing ultimately. However, I know different people have different opinions about this, but in some ways, low-key, I feel like college is your time. If you're out here and you're in college watching this, ultimately the Lord does everything in due season. But I feel like I wish I would have taken college more as a time to get to know all people, even people of different genders, because honestly, that is like how a lot of people find their spouse ultimately. They become friends with someone, you're in like a college ministry, you become friends with another guy who's in a college ministry. You start seeing that person a lot because like typically in college there's a lot of different activities. Okay, there's like, oh, we're gonna do ultimate frisbee today, we're gonna do pickleball today, we're gonna have prayer time on campus today. Typically there's always something going on, especially with a lot of these ministries. And that was how my ministry was too, ultimately. Honestly, I should have showed up to more of those events ultimately. But college is the perfect time to be able to interact with people of all different genders ultimately. And so yeah, that's how I think it's kind of one of the best times, because you're around so many people to work on, honestly, how to talk to men if you feel like you don't know how to have more friendships that could turn into something more ultimately. So yeah, got off on a little bit of a tangent there, but ultimately I think college is a good time to explore and to start dating ultimately, as long as you feel like you're ready and you're in a good position ultimately in your life. So yeah, I wish I definitely would have done that more in college ultimately. So anyway, fast forward into my life, like I said, I mainly just had female friends. I get to, because I thought I had to, kind of, I get to post-college, so like post-college working woman life ultimately. And I think that's when I really just I looked at myself and I was like, okay, like if I want to get married, I need to know how to ultimately like talk to men and go on dates and things like that. So I started going on dates, and I have to say, like you learn by doing ultimately. And I know people have differing opinions about that. There are some people out there who are very against dating in general. I think we're getting away from that, because I think a lot of people are tired of it and are like, okay, yeah, no, we're not going to put up with that anymore. But there are a lot of people who are just like, okay, like if you can, only date your husband. And honestly, I think that's beautiful, and for some people that just works out organically, but ultimately for some of us it doesn't work out like that. There are some people out there, and a lot of people out there, who they go on dates and go on date after date ultimately, and ultimately that's how they end up finding their person. So typically there are a lot of people out there who, you know, it takes a few times for it not to work out, for it ultimately to work out. So yeah, I'm definitely for that ultimately. So yeah, again, fast forward, I'm now in my working woman era, and I start going on dates. And I say all that to say, the more I, talk to men via text and then like spend time with them and things like that, I just learn ultimately men are just people. Men are just people too. And so it was because of those experiences that I feel like I learned how to talk to men and to date, and like what it looks like to date well, or in what it looks like. I learned what I wanted and what I didn't want. So I learned a lot from that time, and it was a very valuable time. So ultimately, I would say don't be afraid to date, and the Lord can actually really begin that. I think a lot of us because when I first went out on like my very first date, a part of me just felt weird and bad, and like I was doing something I wasn't supposed to do. But then I was like, actually, I'm grown now. I'm a grown woman, ultimately. I'm plenty old enough to be married, and I'm gonna go on this date, ultimately. And I learned a lot from it. So yeah, ultimately, sometimes we stand in our own way. Because if I would have carried that mindset, I hope I wouldn't have done this, but maybe I would have meant some more years, like never having dated, ultimately. So yeah, sometimes we got to break old patterns to attract what it is that we do want. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I think I'm about to wrap it up, but ultimately, what I will say is, so I guess actionable steps on your part. So if you are single and you are watching this, I want you to ask yourself why, and to be honest about it. And maybe get out a journal and journal through, because it helps to put words in your thoughts on paper. So the first thing I would ask myself is why? Why am I single? Like, is there a mindset? Like, am I single because I am just waiting on the Lord to bring me the right person? And I think that the Lord is like hiding me ultimately until he presents me to the right person. And then under that, like ask the Lord, like, Lord, is this you? Like, is this truly you're speaking? Am I single because you just want me to be single right now, ultimately? So that's one question I would ask. Okay? And then I think different things will come up with this, because ultimately I think you might start to realize sometimes some things are more we put on ourselves than really the Lord told us to do. And so if something comes up for you, also write that down in your journal. And then also what I want you to do is, if you have taken the time to pray about it and you sought the Lord, maybe you sought also some godly counsel, and you want to take the big step of starting to date and go out on dates, you want to start your dating journey, I also would ask, like, because if you've never dated before, like, it's just like anything else, it takes getting used to and it takes learning. I would ask myself, okay, so what are some things I can do to attract like the man that I want, ultimately? So am I do I need to go out more because like I'm staying in the house too much? Do I need to like start saying yes to more things? Like, oh, like there's that Bible study there, let me say yes to this, let me say yes to that. Do I even need to like maybe work on like my image, ultimately? Maybe do I need to put a little extra care into like my attire and like what I look like? Because honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I was looking kind of like, not all the time, sometimes I was looking like scraggly in college. You live and you learn. I regret that. I should have done better, but here I am now so that you can do better. Whether you're younger than me or older than me, we all can do better, ultimately. Of course, it's what's on the inside that counts, but like, it's always important to like take care of your physical appearance, ultimately, too, in a God-honoring way, of course. So yeah, ask yourself those questions, journal what comes up for you, and if you want to, let me know in the comments below what are some things you discovered when you did those journaling exercises. So I think we're going to end it there. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Single and Whole. Please let me know in the comments below, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on Spotify, what are some things you want me to make videos about? This is new. I would love to get some inspo from you guys. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.